So guys, in this course we are going to go through the concept of Git and GitHub. If you are new to programming, or even if you've been doing this for a while, I bet you this course is going to benefit you greatly, whether you are a web developer, a data analyst. In as much as you write code, then you need Git and GitHub. So I put up this complete crash course for you to help your learning journey. Basically, as a programmer while working on a code project or learning, then you need to be able to revert back to an early version of your code, collaborate smoothly with others, review, move, edit, and modify your files. So that is where Git comes into play. Then you also need to be able to work with other developers, as a programmer, and then you should be able to store, host, and manage your codes remotely. You should be able to host them on the remote server. That is where GitHub comes into play. So by and large, your learning journey on this course, we are going to go through the process of looking at what Git is, how to download and install Git. Then what is GitHub, creating a GitHub account. Then we will learn how some Git commands, pull it changes, push it changes, then work with files and directories, how to ignore files, basic Git operations, then Git branch, Git statue and personal access token, GitHub copilot, pull request and merge. Some of these concepts they are collapsed into creating basic Git operations, so like moving files, deleting files, copying files, folders, rename, and other operations. I collapsed them into this. So basically you're going to be learning a whole lot. So if you are new to programming, welcome to this channel, and I implore you, like and subscribe to the channel, because I'm going to have so many other crash courses like this for your learning journey. So let's get started. Basically, what is Git? Git is a popular version control system, and if you want to ask what is that, it gives you the ability to manage changes to your computer programs, and you can review and restore earlier versions of your code, move, copy, modify files, and upload them to the remote directory. It was originally developed by Linus Torvald in 2005, of course the same guy that developed the Linux operating system. The next thing we want to do, we want to show you how you can download and install Git on your computer, whether you are using macOS, Linux, and basically whether you are using Windows. Then I'm going to show you briefly how you can download and install Git on your computer. So let's jump right into our browser and work that out. So what you get here, what you want to type is Git downloads. You click on search, and the first one that comes up, you click on this first one, gitscm.com/downloads. So like I said earlier, we are going to be downloading for this, okay, our macOS, Windows, and Linux. So the first one we want to start with is Linux operating system. So if you are using Linux, please pay close attention. I'll click on Linux, and it's going to open up this page, and if you see this, then this is the guide that is going to enable you to install. So I'm going to be showing you how to do that for Debian, stroke Ubuntu. If you are using Fedora, Gentoo, Arch, OpenSUSE, Magia, and Freebie, and others, Alpine, the guides are there, so you can just go through them, and it's basically the instruction will get you started. So I'll copy this, and I'll head back to VS Code basically. So what we want to do first, before we paste in the code to install Git on this computer, by the way, I'm using WSL, Windows Subsystem for Linux, on this computer. So what you want to do, you want to ensure you are logged in as a root user or as a super user. So you do sudo, then su. So if I click enter, it's going to ask me for my password. I'll enter it in. So as you can see, I'm logging as a root user. So you want to do that before you paste in the code you copied earlier. So if I paste that in and if I hit enter, it's going to go ahead to download that and okay, it's going to install that. Okay, so once you've done with that, you can check git dash version. Sorry, it's double dash here, so dash version. So it's going to give you the version of Git that you have installed on this computer. The next one, we go back and we want to go ahead to install for Windows as we've done for Linux. Before then, let me just show you quickly for Mac. If you are using Mac OS, then you first want to install Homebrew. If you don't have that, you use this command brew install git. So after that, then you want to go ahead to install Macport. If you don't have that, then you use sudo port install git. So once you do that, you are going to have git properly installed on your Mac operating system. So since we are not using Mac for this training, I'll just go back and then we get to Windows. So we go ahead to install this again. We install for Windows. So if you are using Windows or computer, what you need to do, whether you are using 32-bit or 64-bit, you want to head over here and you want to click on, ensure you are clicking on the Windows portable version. So I'm using 34, so I'll click on this. So it's going to load and you can see it's going to start the download. So I think I have that already, so I'll just stop this and I'm going to show you. So as you can see, I have that here. I have that Git. So the next thing, we'll go ahead to show you how you can install that file. So we click on it and it's going to, so we begin the installation process. All right, so the next thing you click on yes. For the most part, is going to be a series of next and next. So we are not basically changing anything. So yes, we click on next. So again, we want to save it here. If you want to change the where you want to store it, you can browse and change that, but I just need it here, so I'll click on next. So again, here I click on next. I click on next. Again next. Then I go ahead to click on next again. Here again next. Like it's going to be next for the most part. So I'll click on next again, next, and again next. Again we click on next and we do the same thing here. So it's going to start the installation. So I have, it's going to run down till it completes. So I'm just going to cancel this because I have that installed already. So you go ahead and do that and it's just going to install that. So after the installation, you want to check it out to see that it's rightly installed. So go to your command prompt, search for command prompts or CMD is going to open this up and you just search git dash version. You hit enter, so it's going to give you the version of Git. Again, you can check the same thing, do the same thing on your PowerShell, git dash version. So it's going to give you the version of Git. So that is for the installation part. So now that we have installed Git, the next concept we want to look at is GitHub. What is GitHub? Basically, it is a web-based platform that hosts, store, or manage your code, and it's remote. All right, it's a remote web-based platform that helps you to host and manage your code, and it is open source and collaborative. By open source, we mean that anybody on the community can contribute to it and make it better and more effective. So the next thing I'll show you again how you can create a GitHub account. So for the most part, again, we head to our browser and this time we want to do GitHub sign up. So you click on it and it's going to open up. So what you want to do, you click on join GitHub and you can see that it's going to bring this up, sign in and sign up. So what you want to do, you click on sign up, you provide your details, your username, you provide your email address and your password. You click on the button below next, and it's going to ask you a couple of some other information. As you click next, then it's going to ask you to confirm those details, and it's going to bring out more like a puzzle to solve and place in order. So once you've done all those things, you can go ahead and click on sign up, and then boom, you are going to be able, you get a GitHub account, and the next thing you want to do is you want to log in into that GitHub account. So once that account is ready, you want to log in into it. So once you provided your email address and your password, boom, it's going to open up the account for you. So it's going to look like this. Okay, this will be the GitHub account. So once we're done with that, then we want to again look at some terminologies which you need to get along with what we are going to be looking at practically in this course. The first one is CLI, which stands for Command Line Interface. Then you should be familiar with VS Code, Visual Studio Code, which is a complete IDE, integrated development environment. It also helps you to write your code, so you need a Visual Studio Code. There are other alternatives, by the way. You can have Sublime Text, Notepad++, and the rest, but we are using VS Code. So you have directory, which is a folder that holds your files. GitHub, which is a web-based platform to hold your repositories online. Then you have a repository, which is a superset of a directory. Okay, if a directory is a room, then you want to see the repository as the whole house. Then you have a commit, which is a specific version of a repository, which consists of changes made to one or more files. Ignore files, these are files you don't want to keep Git to keep track of, so you want them to be ignored. So right now we are going to go into the practical section. I'm going to show you how all of this work. So the first thing we want to do, we want to head back to our GitHub account, which we created earlier, and I'm going to show you how all of this works. So once you get here, and you are going to have this as your GitHub. So the first thing I want us to do is to create a repository. I already showed you a repository is more like a server, or where you are going to store your files, your project if you're working on one. So what you want to do, you want to create a repository. So you come down here, you have this plus sign, so you click on it, and basically it's going to bring out a whole bunch of stuff. You have new repository, pod repository, all of this. So the first thing you want to ensure, you want to click on new repository. So I'll go ahead and click on new repository. So once you do that, it's going to open this up, and you want to give a name to your repository. So I just want to name this my test repo. Okay, just ensure that when you are creating your repository, always ensure you put maybe a space or an underscore. It helps a lot. So my test repository. Okay, so once you've done that, it's going to allow you to add a description, which is optional, by the way. You can add a description. Then you have public, private. This shows that you want anyone to be able to see your repo. This one you choose who to see or commit. So we're going to make it private, public, then add a readme. All of this we are going to leave out for now. I will explain them when we start working on the project. So for the most part, what we want to do now is to just go ahead and click on create repository. So I'll click on it, create repository. So once we've done that, it's going to load up, and it's going to bring us here. So what we have here is a created repository with a URL displaying to us. So you have this as our URL. So what we want to do now is we want to copy this URL and clone it into our Visual Studio Code. By clone, we want to more like import it and start working on it. So again, GitHub is going to leave you with some commands, some Git commands that you want to use as you start working on your project. So you have Git init, which is going to help you initialize your repo. Then you have Git add, you want to add your readme.md file if you have one already. So Git commit, you want to add you want to help Git to be able to help you store your code, your created files. Then you have branches, which we will talk about as we move on in the training. So again, we want to clone this repo into our computer and start working on it. So I'll show you how that works right away. So after creating that repo, again, I want you to understand that as you work with GitHub using GitHub and Git, it is a good practice for you to create an access token. What is an access token? It gives a layer of security to your project as you work on them, so that people cannot easily access your project, more like having right to modify or tamper with your project. So it's more like a password, but instead of using normal password, it is better you have personal access token. So how do you get one? Here you can go to just come here, right here on this part. So you want to click on this, and once it comes up, you have a whole bunch of stuffs here. Again, you want to come down here. What we are looking for is settings. So you click on settings. So once it loads up, you are going to come down and move here. You have developer settings. Again, you click on developer settings, and you want to click on personal access token. So I click personal access token, then come to the classic. That's the stable. This one is in the beta phase. So I click on classic token. Then what you want to do, for the most part, you want to generate a new token. These are the ones I generated already. Okay, so you click on generate new token. So again, click on classic, and again it's going to prompt you to enter your password for your GitHub account to be sure that you are the one doing this. So again, it's going to ask you a note, maybe the name for your token. So I'm just going to do new. Then expiry date, you want to push this as far as possible, maybe 90 days, or you can do custom. Okay, so let me just leave it at 90. Then it's going to ask you to select the scope, define the access for your token. You want to click this. Then it's going to be you want to be able to delete. Then admin repo hook, just take that and delete repo. Alright guys, so after that you click on generate token. Okay, so you go ahead and click on this generate token. Once you click on generate token, it's going to display a token for you to copy that you can use. Once it displays that, please copy it, because it's not going to show up again. So you go ahead to copy that token, and once you copy that, you are going to save it in your notepad, more like save it on your notepad, or you can have it up or your store it remotely, maybe your Google Drive or something. Just have it saved somewhere. So once you have that, so this is my token which I generated, so yours is going to look like this for the large part. So again, we are going to go back, and you can see we have created a repo. Again, we need to get that repo up as we start working on it. So again, you want to ensure that you copy that. So we are supposed to copy that earlier. Okay, so this is the repo we created. So after that, you can come here, click on this to copy, or you can just copy this, Ctrl C, you copy that, and you come back here. You want to paste it somewhere here. So I just paste that. So how do you use this token along with this repo that you've created? So basically what you want to do, you want to copy this, and once you get here, just going to copy this. Once you get here, you are going to have, after the second slash, you want to add an @ okay, then you come back here, you paste the access token. So for the most part, it's going to look like this. Okay, so you see before the github.com, you have an @ okay, that's directing us to GitHub and the repo that we created. So after that, you want to add a git pull, a git clone. Okay, so git clone, the repo, access token combined. So we want to copy the whole command. Okay, we want to copy the whole command. All right, so I'll click on copy, then I'll come back here to my VS Code. I want to exit from Ctrl D to exit as the root user. Okay, we are back. Again, let me clear my screen. So what you want to do, I want to save this in my desktop. So I will paste what I copied, Ctrl V. So you can see it's going to look like this. Git clone http and it's going to look like this. So what you want to do, you want to clone this. So if I hit enter, it's going to clone the name, my test is going to clone this into. All right, so exactly what you need to see. Warning, you appear to have cloned an empty repository. So it's empty, there's no code on it yet, so we've cloned that. So after doing that, you're going to see that here is going to show main. So if I do git branch, it's going to show main. Okay, I think. All right, so if it doesn't show main, so what you need to do, you need to initialize it. So again, that takes me to showing you this git init to initialize that repository. If you so if you do git init and hit enter, so it's going to initialize this empty repository as a git repo. So okay, I think first we need to cd into that repo. I think that was an error on my part. So cd into the file we created, cd into test file. I think we cloned. Okay, my test repository, cd my test repository. Okay, so all right, so if I cd into that, if I let's again do try git branch here, which is going to list the branches we have, that is not going to return. So if I try doing git init, okay, so initialize, we'll reinitialize that as a git repository. So yeah, we have not started working on it, so I think that is why it's not going to show anything for the most part. Before we start creating files, creating repo, removing files and moving files, I just want to show you basic git commands. So these are the basic ones. There are more, there are a lot of them. So basically, if you are using Linux or Unix, or you are using Windows, the command different. So I needed to separate them so you know which is what and how to use them appropriately. Again, I'm going to show you how both of them work for Linux and Windows, since I'm operating both on this computer. So ls is going to help you to list files and directories. So the equivalent command in Windows is dir. cd is going to help you change directory, is the same for most part in Windows. Then print working directory, to print the working directory you are on. Okay, for Windows is going to be cd. mkdir to make directory is going to be same for both Windows. Remove directory is going to be same. -m to remove a file, but for Windows you're going to use del to delete. All right, cp is to copy files. So the equivalent command in Windows is copy. mv to move. All right, is going to be move. So I'm going to show you practically how this command works on both Windows and Linux machine. All right, before we begin to compare between the command for Linux and Windows, I just want to talk about Git configuration levels, and specifically there are 3 configuration levels in Git. The first one basically is system level, global level and local level. I am just going to focus on the global level for now. We are going to look at that. For global level configuration, we are talking about configuration for this current user of the system. So because we've cloned this repo, if we want to push Git, if you have more than one user of this computer, Git is going to ask us, oh, can you tell me who you are? Because I have other users who have been using this. So to clarify that, you have to use configure your name as well as your email address. So how do you do that? You just come to the terminal and do git config. Git config dash global, because we are doing a global configuration. Let me just bring this out. Control B or Command B on Mac. So git config dash global, so user.name, and you are going to open this quote, and it's going to be the GitHub username. You are going to use your GitHub username to configure it. Okay, so you hit enter. So you do the same thing, git config dash global, and this time you want to do user.email. So anytime, once you do this, anytime you want to push, Git is not going to ask you to enter the configuration. Is going to know, okay, this is the person that is pushing. So that's gmail.com. Okay, so again you hit enter. So to list the configurations you have, you're going to do git config dash list. So yeah, it's going to list that. You're going to see email and the user.name, which we entered earlier. Every other thing here we will talk about them subsequently. So yeah, so you have to ensure you put that in, so that it's not going to ask you for those credentials when you want to push later. So I can go ahead to clear this. So the next thing we want to do now, we want to compare between commands for Windows and Linux. So because I can use both here, so I'll just go ahead to do that comparison. So to help us understand these basic differences between the Linux and Windows operating system, I will just I'm going to partition this into two parts. Okay, so on my left I'll be using Ubuntu on the left, while on the right I'll be using a typical command prompt which runs on Windows. So first, if I list files here on my left, remember I'm using Ubuntu this way. So if I do ls, it's going to list the files and directories which we already have on this project. I just quickly created all of these files. I'm going to show you, but let's just first look at this. So if I come to my right hand side, if I use the same ls command, it's not going to work. It's going to throw this that ls is not recognized, you know. So for you to be able to do the same thing on Windows, you are going to use dir. Okay, if I hit enter now, so it's going to list the files we have in that directory. Okay, so just the same thing will work. It will work like that. So again, if I want to clear this screen, for my left hand side again on my Ubuntu, if I do clear, is going to clear the screen. But if I come back here, if I'm going to use the same clear, you'll see that the same error is going to show that clear is not recognized. So the equivalent command on Windows is going to be cls. Okay, so it's going to clear that. Again, there are other commands. For the most part, cd is just going to be the same to change directory, and again ls is going to list directories, files and directories. So again, for Ubuntu, for Linux, if I do pwd, is going to print the current working directory. The equivalent here, if I try doing pwd, is not recognized. So what I need to do here is cd. So it's going to print the correct working directory. So these are some of the basic differences between your Ubuntu and your Linux, Ubuntu with Linux basically, and your Windows operating system. So after that, now I'm just going to focus on using Linux. Okay, I'm using WSL, Windows Subsystem for Linux, on this Windows machine. Okay, you can go ahead and do the same thing. So basically, I have this directory and I have these files here. So basic operations. If I want to change directory, this is a directory. If I want to change directory to this, what I just need to do, I do cd and the name of the directory which I want to change to, cd project. So as you can see, is going to change to this directory here. So if I list, you discover ls is going to list files and directory I have here. I have none. So let's quickly create a file. We can use the keyboard. If I do vi, I'm using vi to create a file. So let me just vi, the name of the file which I want to create, let's just call this one file.txt. okay, so it's going to bring me here. As you can see, it's going to open this up without me working manually creating here on VS Code by using all of these side icons. So here, if I come here, I'm going to tap on I to insert. I want to start insert here text. Okay, so let's say I'm learning Git and Github. Okay, so once I'm done, I can press the escape key, okay, to get out of there. So I can hold shift colon WQ to save and exit. So if I list again now, you see that I have one file here which I just created. So if I want to know the content of that file, I can use cat file.txt. okay, so if I do that, it's going to reveal the content of that file, which is I am learning Git and GitHub. So that is how you create a file and list the content of that file. What if I want to create, let's say I want to create a directory. So let me just clear using the clear command to clear. So what if I want to create a directory inside of this directory? Okay, maybe I should go back. If I do cd, which means change directory, dot is going to move a step backward. So if I hit enter now, you see it's going to move away from project into this directory. So let me create a directory. To create a directory here, you use the keyboard shortcut. mkdir is the same for both Windows and Linux. So mkdir, and I just want to name this test, mkdir test. So if I list files, and you see that I now have two directories. I now have two directories here. Okay, so I can change directory into this new directory which I created, cd test. Sorry, test. All right, I'm now in the test directory. Again, I can create a file inside the test directory. So again, inside the test directory, we could create an empty file. So to create an empty file, you use the command touch and the name of the file. So I could do touch my file. Okay, so if I hit enter, if I list now, I have one file. If I try to cut the content of my file, you see that there's nothing there. So it's just an empty file. So again, we could remove that file. So how do you remove a file? What command do you use? You use the command rm and the name of the file. So test my file. So if I do that, it's going to remove that file. If I list again, you can see that test is now an empty directory. So I could cd cd to the previous directory. And what if I want to remove this directory, this test directory? If I list now, you see that is there. So how do I do that? I just type rm dir, that's remove rm remove dir directory. So I type test. So I hit enter. If I list now, you see that the test directory is no longer here. So you can see we have shown you how to create a file, create a directory, then remove directory and files. from your project. Okay, so again, let's just quickly look at some more commands before we move to the next one. So the next command I want to look at now is how to copy files. Okay, how to copy files. So I have these files here, index.html, and if I want to copy one of the file, let me check the project. So you see the content of that file. You see that I have one file inside the project directory, which is file.txt. So basically I could copy, okay, let me go back, cd ... to move a directory backward. So if I could copy index.html into project. Okay, so to do that, I'll just do cp to copy. What am I copying? Index.html. I want to copy that file and I want to copy it into the directory project. So to do that, I'll do dot, which is on the I'm still working on the same level here. I want to copy it into the project directory, so I'll do project. So all right, so let's see if we are able to do that correctly. See the project, and if I list the files now, you can see that I now have 2 files inside the project directory. So that has been successfully copied. What if I want to move a file into another directory? Let's say I have a file.txt inside the project directory here. I want to move it to the previous directory. How do I do that? Again, let me clear here. So I want to move file.txt. I'll use the command move, name of the file, file.txt, and where am I moving it to? I want to move it to the previous directory, which is my test.repo, from project to my test.repository. So I'm just going to do ... which is I'm moving a directory back. Okay, so if I hit enter, so if I list the files here now inside project, you see that I no longer have this file.txt. So where is it? If I change directory backward now and list, you can see that file.txt is lying here. So yeah, that's it for me. So before we move away from here, now let's quickly talk about renaming files and directories. So I have these files here. Okay, let's say I want to change the name of file.txt. I want to rename it into another file. Let's say I want to rename it to unit.txt. So the command to use here is mv, and it's going to be file.txt. Then the old name, which is file.txt, I want to change it to unit.txt. Okay, so if I hit enter and if I list again, you see that that change is going to be effected. So I no longer have file.txt here, I now have unit.txt. So that is how you rename a file. Again, you could rename a directory. So like I have project directory here, so I can rename that directory to wherever I want to put there. Let's say I want to change project to test. Okay, so how do I do that? Again, I use the move command, the old name and the new name, which is going to be test. So move project to mv, rename. So if you are moving a file or moving a directory and you are renaming it, you are using the same command, which is mv. So mv project, we are changing the name to test. So if I hit enter, so if I list now, you're going to see that project is no longer anywhere to be found. We now have test. That means we have changed the directory to test. So basically, these are simple commands which you should be conversant with as we go through this course. Now let's look at how you push your changes from your local work environment to GitHub. We have been working here locally and we have succeeded in creating all of these files. But if we go back to check our remote repository which we created, you can see that none of this file is here, and GitHub does not know that we have created all of those files. How do we move them from our computer to be saved remotely? So as you can see, if you check here, you are going to see that we have made some changes here, which in this source control, you can see that we have made about 5 changes, but none of them have been added to the, we are just working on the working area. None of them have been staged, none of them have been committed, and none of the changes have been pushed. So how do we move from adding our files from the working area to the staging area, and committing them from the staging area to committing them to pushing them to GitHub, which is our remote where we have them saved or stored? So we have these files, and if you look at each of these files, if I open up here, you are going to see that, just use Ctrl B to toggle, you are going to see a U, here. What does this stand for? It means that these files have been all committed. We have not committed them to Git. Okay, so how do we go ahead to do the commit? So to do that, we are just going to come to the terminal again and use the simple command git add. So we can decide to add them to the staging area individually, like add index.html. okay, so after doing that, you discover that index.html have been added. So if I do git status, which is supposed to show us the status of our files, you are going to see that on this branch main that a file has been added. That means Git is now aware. So the Git is now aware this file has been moved from the working area to the staging area. But you can see that other files and directories are in red. Okay, that means that these files have not been committed. So they are simply called untracked files. So they are untracked files. There is only one file that is being tracked by Git here, which is this. Alright, so I believe you understand the difference between the file we committed now and the one that have not been committed. So let me clear here. So I just use git add dot to add a single file to the git add the name of the file to add a single file to the staging area. So what if I want to add all the files? So to do that, I will change the command to git add dot or period. So by this, it means that I want to add all of the files that are present in this directory into the staging area. So if I hit enter, it's going to add all of them. So if I again do git status, you are going to see that all of the files are now in green. So that means that they have been committed. They've been moved from the working area to the staging area. So that's the difference. So let me clear here. So we have added all the files. So what we want to do now, we want to commit the files. To do that, you use the command git commit -m and the commit message. I just want to say initial commit as the message for my commit. So that is how you do that. Git commit -m. This is a flag which means message and the message you want to commit with. So if I hit enter, it's just going to commit these files. Okay, so it's going to commit this file. Again, let's do git status to see what we have. So if I hit git status, you can see that nothing to commit because the files have been moved, they've been committed. Okay, Git is basically the files are no longer in staging area, they'll be committed already. So the next thing I want to do now, I want to use the command git push, and git push is going to help us move the files from our local computer. Now after we've committed them, the files have now been committed, so they are in the possession of Git, so we can now push them to the remote. So I'll do git push. If I hit enter, so as you can see, it's not going to ask me for any details, because when we are starting out, I told you about global configuration, and we use git config user.name. We used our GitHub name and git config dash global user.email. So it's going to push these files accordingly to the remote repository. So it's not going to ask us, it's not going to complain or query us about the push. So we pushed already. So how do we check that out? Let's head over to GitHub. So the page is still here. If I try to refresh now, you're going to see that the files have been pushed here. So yeah, exactly what I'm saying. So these are the files, and it's going to rightly give you the commit message which I use, which is initial commit, and again the time it was committed 1 minute ago. Okay, the next thing we want to look at is Git branching. Okay, how do we create a branch in Git? How do we work with branches? How do we push branches, and how do we delete branches? The first, a branch is a version of the repository that diverges from the main working directory. Basically, take for instance, you are collaborating on a project, and basically you want to test things out as one of the contributors to the repository. Okay, instead of breaking this up, what you need to do is to create a branch. After you create a branch, you can do whatever you want to do on that branch, okay, before you want to push to the main code base. So that is why even if you are coding alone, you need to work with branches to help you not to bring things up in your main code. So let's create a branch and show you how you work with branches. To create a branch in Git, what you need to do is you do git branch first to check the number of branches you have. So here you can see that it's going to display main. That means we have just one branch. We are working with one branch here. So how do you create another one? To create a branch, you do git checkout -b. Flag is going to specify that we are creating a branch and the name of the branch. So I just want to name this one git checkout -b test1. So what I'm doing here with this command is that it's going to create a branch test1 and is going to check out into that branch. Okay, that's the meaning. If I use git checkout, the name of the branch alone, is going to create a branch without switching into that branch. So let's try that before we use the -b command. Okay, so okay, let me do the same thing. This time let me add a flag. Okay, right there is going to create that branch and is going to switch into that branch. All right, so how do I know this? If I hit git branch again, so I now have two branches, the main branch and the test branch. As you can see that the test branch is in green, which shows that I'm working in the test branch. So let's just go to our files and just make a little change. So in the project, I just want to change something here. So here I just want to add maybe an h1 tag, h1, and type maybe learning Git, and okay, we just changed something here. So let me close this off. So let me clear here again. So again I list, and again I have 2 branches and I've made a change. So what I need to do, I need to add that change to the new branch. I need to commit that new change with a commit message. Let's say modify index.html. okay, so alright, so I needed to do that, so I modified index.html. So I now have a separate branch which is different from the main branch, and this separate branch, it now have a different files, right? Because I now have this new branch have the modified version of the other branch, main branch, which I created. So how do I push this new branch to the remote repository? How do I get it up on GitHub? If we go to GitHub, you are going to see that if I go to branches here, as you can see, we have main branch here, and that's the only branch we have, just one branch, which is the default branch. How do I get this second branch up onto GitHub? So how you do that, you are going to use the command git push -u, which shows that we are pushing to the remote origin, and I'll just do origin and the name of the branch, which is test. Okay, so git push -u origin test. So if I hit enter, what it's going to do here is going to push that branch to the remote origin. So what we want to do now, if we head back to GitHub and try to refresh our code again, and if I check here now, you can see that I have a second branch which we call test. So I now have 2 branches, and it's prompting me to compare and pull requests. So I don't want to do that now, but I just want to show you that we have created a branch and we have pushed it to the remote. Okay, so again here, let me clear. The last thing I want to show you right now is how to delete a branch. So again, let me create a third one, git checkout, like I showed you earlier, -b, and let me just call this test 1. Alright, so yeah, if I do git branch now, you can see that we have 3 branches. I just created and switched to the new branch, and in this new branch, again, let me make a little change here on the file. Okay, so the style, let me just add something, a little modification, test decoration none. Okay, so I'll just make that change, and let me switch this back. So we add this new change I made in the new file. I will commit it, git commit, with a message modify style.css. okay, so I just committed, I added and committed. So what if I no longer have any business with that branch? I want to remove the last branch which I created. So the command to do that, to delete a branch, you can use git branch. You use the -d flag and the name of the branch which you want to delete. Take note, we have not pushed this new branch to the remote. So if I hit enter, okay, it came with an error, cannot delete branch. Alright, so that we need to check out. If we do git branch, you can see that we are on the test 1 branch. So for us to delete it, we need to check out of that branch. You can see we are actively working on that branch, so we cannot delete a branch while we are working on it. So to check out, let's check out to the main branch. You check out main. Okay, so you can see that if I do git branch now, we have switched to the main branch. Okay, so again we can now try deleting the test1 branch. So if I hit enter, okay, we have not fully merged, so git branch -d. So let's use a force delete. All right, so if it's going to delete that branch, so if I do git branch now, so we now have two branches, main and test branch. Okay, so basically you can merge two branches together. Okay, so we can merge two branches together. We have two branches here, main and test. So let's try to merge and use the format delete the lowercase d which we used earlier. So first, let's show you how you merge a branch. So to merge a branch, first you have to ensure that you are checked out into the branch you want to merge into. In most cases, you want to merge into the main branch. So we have main and test here. So what we want to do, we want to merge test with main. Okay, we want to seek them together so that they can have exactly the same files content. So to do that, first you have to switch to main, and as you can see, we are already in main branch. So to merge, you do git branch, sorry, not branch this time, git merge, and the branch you want to merge with the main branch. So git merge test which you want to merge. So if I hit enter, is going to merge those branches. So you can see that now there are no changes between the main branch and the test branch. So we can use the -d, the delete with the -d flag now. So this time I want to delete the test branch. So we have merged it already. So if I hit git branch -d and hit enter, it's going to delete this test branch because we have merged it already. So yeah, that is how you merge a branch. So remember, we pushed one of the branches to the remote repository earlier, which we pushed earlier. So if you go back, you can see that the branch is still there, test. So how do we delete from here? We already deleted from our local machine. So to delete from the remote, what you just need to do is you do git push origin, then you are going to add to dash, then delete test. Okay, so git push origin dash dash delete test. So if I hit enter, see that is going to delete test from the remote repo. So if I come here and refresh this page now, you can see that we no longer have that test branch. All right, we now have just one main branch. That's it, guys. I believe you are having fun, you are enjoying this training. We are going to move and talk about stashing. You can see, maybe you are working on a code base and you have some, you can see these are two versions. You have uncommitted changes, and this part is you stash those uncommitted changes away, like hide them away from Git, while you switch back to the main or master branch to work. So let's just go to VS Code and illustrate this so that you can have a better understanding of what we are talking about. All right, so this is just a simple project I created. Okay, and Git stashing, you just have 3 files, and I have to branch. If I on this code base, if I do git branch, I have main and product branch.
Say for instance, I'm working on this project with a partner, okay, Jane, and is working, and I'm doing the same thing. Okay, I just created a branch to test things out before pushing them to the code base. And while I was doing that, I just add a color orange. While I was doing that, Jane called, okay, I have put some changes to the code base. Can you just pull them and check them out and see, review it and see how they are? All right, so I was just working on the product branch. So I said, all right, let me do that right away. I do git checkout, and main. By the way, you can use git switch. It's just the same thing. All right, git checkout main. If I hit enter, it's going to show me this. I cannot switch because I have some changes. I need to commit them or stash them away. All right, so what exactly is stash? Let's just illustrate this so that you understand this concept better. It's just a concept of telling Git, there are some changes I made. I don't want to commit those changes. Can you just help me hide them away or hold them in good faith while I go back, switch back to the main branch and check out some stuff there. All right, so I will require those code base from you. I will require those code from you when I am ready, but for now I need to go back, but I don't need to commit my changes. So that's basically the summary of the concept of stashing. All right, so back to VS Code. So I need to stash this code for me to be able to switch. So how do I do that? I use git stash, just like that. So if I hit enter, what it's going to do, is going to stash those changes, hold them while I switch back. Okay, it's just going to hide them away from Git while I switch back. So if I try to switch back to the main branch now, all right, I'm able to switch. Okay, so I thought, oh, Jane added a color blue violet to P. Oh, nice. It's a very nice modification you have done. I'm satisfied with it. Okay, all right, I called Jane. Nice, I see your changes. I've reviewed, they are okay. So I need to go back to the products. So I do git product branch, git checkout product. All right, switch back. All right, so I come back here. Oh, I told Git, I gave you some code base to help me hold in good faith. How do I get it back? I need it now. So the command to do that is git stash up. So that is going to reapply the stashed code base, the files we stashed earlier. Is going to bring them back so that we keep working on it. So if I hit enter, all right, so it's going to bring back. You see, I am now on this branch. You can see that P we added is no longer here. So the first thing, you have a profile which you can display from here. Okay, which if I click here right now, you are going to see your profile, which is the same thing that is showing here. Okay, this is your profile, and it's going to be on the left hand side. You have edit profile. You can edit your profile and then change some of this information that is displaying about you here. All right, so again, we just go from here. There are a lot of concepts to look at, so we just go from here. As you can see, if we come here, you can see there's a repository here, which you can see here, this one, repository. Basically, what is a repository? A repository is more like a directory or a folder where you store your work on the remote. So github.com is a remote hub where you can store your code. All right, so if you understand that, then I'll go ahead to give you an example, more like create a repo so that you can have a perfect knowledge on how that is done. Okay. So once you click on repository, you have issues. Okay, what are they? And if you want to learn about issues, let's just click on it and I will explain what that is. Basically, they allow users to track and manage tasks related to their project. You know what needs to be done, discuss how to do it, and record what has been done. If you are going into peer programming, by peer programming I simply means you are working with other people on a repository or on the same code base, then issues is going to help a lot. You just come here, you open an issue that other people have access, you discuss how things are going to be in the project, then you go back and forth and you work on them. So that is basically what issue is, from the name, of course, issues. All right, so we move. The next one we want to talk about, you have pull request here. You see pull request, so I'll click on it. So then I'll again explain what a pull request is, even though I have a video about pull request. Okay, I'm going to link that in the description too. Okay, so what is a pull request? It's more like a way to propose a change to a project, then discuss those change with others and get approval before merging them into the main code. You have more like you have 3 individuals working on a project. It's a group project. All right, so they both have a version of a copy of the code base on their local machine, I mean on their computer. So they are working on it. Each individual can send what they have to the main project, which is saved on GitHub. Okay, so because if they allow them to push directly, somebody who may just not be too careful and put the wrong thing to the main hub, to the GitHub account where they are storing the project. So to avoid that, they agreed, okay, we're going to create a pull request before you put your changes. What that is that as you send in your changes, then everybody in the group will be able to review those changes before they approve them. So if they review it, they find, okay, these changes you made is acceptable by me, okay, they accept it, then before it can be added directly into the code base. So that is basically what pull request is used more in. You use it for peer programming. All right, then you have actions. Again, you have actions. I'll just talk about this. It's a way to automate software development workflow. If you look through it down, as I go down, you can see deployment, you can see security, you can see continuous integration and automation. What this is going to help you to, if you have regular actions which you engage in, more like saving stuff, deployment, automation of processes, then action is going to help you automate software development workflow. It saves your time, handle repetitive tasks, and is going to make your work faster and more efficient. So that is what that do. So you may want to consider that as you get started. So the next stuff we are looking at from here, Wiki. Again, I will not dwell much on this. Wiki is just a built-in notebook for your project on GitHub. A way to create is more like a small notepad on your GitHub project. So it can help you to organize stuff and put them. Then security, we have security here. Again, I will not dwell on that inside. Then I move to something quite important, which is settings. So if I click on settings, you can see that it have a whole series. Is going to bring up this series of interface. Is going to display this interface for us. There are a couple of things which I need to discuss about. This is the repo name, as you remember, which we created earlier. Then this is the name. Then you can, if you look at it from the top left hand side, you are going to see collaborators. So what this means is that if you plan to work with somebody else on a code base, you have a project, you have 2 persons, 3 persons, or 4 individuals working on it, then you need to, after you create a repo, you need to add such individuals to that project. So before you can do that, it's going to ask you for your password, and you click yes, confirm access, and once you come here, you can see you can add people to this repository. So if you click on add people, it's going to ask you to search for the name of those individuals you want to add to the project. So that is what collaborators does. So you have a moderation option. You can moderate what others, how they interact during the development process. Okay, then you have code and automation. Okay, it's more related to the actions we talk about, GitHub actions we talked about earlier. So you can click on it and it can help you. So you have rules here. Okay, some rules you want to consider. Then you have actions, which I talked about earlier, that help you to automate processes. Then again, you have environment. I want to dwell on code spaces. Okay, you have code spaces here. Okay, I want to dwell on this. I believe that this is very important and you need to know this. So what is a code space? A code space is basically a remote version of your IDE. If you are familiar with VS Code, Visual Studio Code, it's more like having a remote version of Visual Studio Code. You are not working locally, you are working on the remote directly. Okay, I'm going to go ahead to set up a code space right away so that you can see how that work. Okay, basically, to better explain this, I think we have to get it from here. You can see new code space. Like I said earlier, a code space is a remote version of your IDE. So you can create a code space. What you need to do, of which I will be creating one right away so that you better understand how it works. Search for a repo. You see on this project, I can use, okay, let me say I want to use this project. I want to create it a new code space on this project. I click on that, then the branch, of course, I'm going to use the main branch. Then you can leave every other thing the same way it is. For this, by the way, it can help you switch between this or this. I'll just leave it on the upper one, and I'll create code space. So it's going to load and set up the code space for us, and it's going to set up code space. Yes, so you can see that it's going to open up this. I believe you're familiar with this. This look like your VS Code. Okay, so once this comes up, you can see that we have a URL here. All right, that means I'm working on the remote. It's a remote IDE, not working locally on my machine. So it look familiar like your normal VS Code. So let it load fully so that we can see what we can do here. Choose a theme. Okay, of course, as usual, we're gonna go with this. All right, so perfect. It looks like your VS Code, right? Good. So we can then close this up. So, but this is VS Code on the remote server. So welcome to CodeSpace. You are on the default image. So again, pay attention to this. It includes runtime and tools for Python, Node.js, Docker, and more. So see the full list here. And so all the tools you need, you don't need to install anything. All right, what you need is going to be there. Whether you need a Docker image, you need Node.js, you need Express, whatever is going to be there. But you are working on the remote. All right, so that's just the difference. So I'll go back on this, and the next thing, so back here, we have talked about code spaces. Again, pages. Let me just say one or two things about pages. It helps in building and deploying a project. It helps in project deployment. Okay, I may not dwell on this because as a beginner you are more interested in getting familiar with the terms and getting used to working on VS Code. But if you have a project, a small project you want to deploy, you can use GitHub pages to do that. But it's limited in a way, but it can help you to learn how this deployment works. So every other thing here, deployment keys, we may not need some of this for now. Let me just go up here, and you can see some of these things we are seeing here. We saw them earlier in the other side. I've explained to you what a profile is, repo. Then I want to talk about Copilot. Okay, basically a Copilot is an AI tool that helps you write more efficient code. All right, so you will want to try this out. So I'll click on it. Let me talk a little about it and show you how you can go about it. So if you click on it, it's going to come up with this, and of course it will give you 30-day free trial, and then you can pick a pricing plan that you want to use. I have paid version which I use. So if you subscribe to the paid version, it's going to be something like this. So if you are here, then it's going to prompt you. You have to install GitHub Copilot extension on VS Code, Visual. So I use VS Code, which is of course more popular. So if you come to VS Code, you have to install Copilot. So you click here, then you install Copilot. You click on this install button. So I'll do that right away. So it's going to start the installation. So once you install, you can start using that. So that is that about Copilot. Then let's talk about other more important stuffs that we can see here. So I click here earlier. So again, let's go back here. Project, your project. I've explained about repository. So you can see project here. Let me just say one or two things about this project. Your project here, it helps you provide visual interface for organizing your tasks on GitHub. It's more like the Trello, GitHub version of Trello. It's not like Trello in that way, but you can help you organize your tasks, your project, especially when you are working on a large project. So as you can see, this is how it looks. So you can jump right in, you can communicate with your peers and do all of that right here. You can structure out how your project is going to be and who is doing what. So it's a great tool you may want to consider if you are working as a team or even working alone. Here you have stars, GitHub stars. you also have that here. So either way, I will explain what that do. So let me just pick it from here. So if stars is a way of creating a list of favorite projects that interest you. Maybe you go through some of this repository and you see projects that you like, you may want to look at in the future. You can just start them. So if you start them, they are going to appear as stars on the persist repo, and you will have those projects. You will have them, a list of them in your, you more like bookmark them to look through them later. So that is what stars is. Then you have gist, they are for showing code snippets, configurations, files, or quick draft in markdown. Let me explain this in a way that you can easily pick it up. Let's say you discovered a new trick in Python, something that works in Python. You can create a gist about it, paste your code snippet in a new gist. You can create a new gist, paste your code snippet, and add a brief description. Then choose whether it's going to be public or private. Then you can share it with your team. Okay, this is what I found about Python. Check it out if it interests you. So they can comment on it, they can look at it, they can review it. So that is what gist basically do. Then you have your organization, your enterprise. We are not looking at all of this for now. So the next thing I want us to look at, you can have GitHub community. Again, that's the whole world of it. Only you have a large community engaging in discussions. So you can come here, you are looking at, you have a challenge, you want to hear other people's opinion or try to search for what people have said about certain tasks or challenges. You can come here and ask your questions and get them answered too. So you can say GitHub different topic, so you can come and search, come to the search term and search on what you are looking for. So it's going to open that for you.
Ignoring files in Git. First, what are ignore files? Ignore files basically are files you do not want Git to track. So these are files that will not be committed and pushed to your repository. They remain basically in your local machine. So these are examples of ignore files: vscode.ds store, node modules, log, temp node, swap files, as well as .env file. So basically, I won't go back to VS Code terminal to show you how you create a git ignore file. So here, back to this project, what I want to do now, I want to create .git ignore file, then add certain files to that git ignore. So what you need to do, you come to the root of your project and you create a file and you just name it .git ignore. Okay, you hit enter, it's going to create that .git ignore. So what we want to do now, we want to create some files that add them to this .git ignore so that Git will not track those files. So here I come back to my home repo again and I'll create a folder, just call it node modules, and I'll create again, I'll create another folder called notes. I'll create a file called .env file. Then I'll create another file called .swap. Okay. All right. Then what's more, I will create a catch file. Okay. I just create okay, let's say folder called, let me call that catch. All right, so what I want to do, I will create after creating all of these files, then I'll go back to my .git ignore file. I'm going to add those files to git ignore so that Git will not track those files. So the first one, node modules, then I'll add my notes. Okay, so once I add them, they are going to be blurred out. As you can see, they are going to be blurred out. Then I'm going to add .env file. All right, then I'll add .swap file. Then I'm going to add the catch folder. Okay, so yes, any file that is any name that is added to the gitignore file will not be tracked by Git. And even if I go ahead to create a file inside this node folder, let's say I create a new file, I call it file.txt. Inside that folder, you are going to see that again that file will be ignored by Git. So after that, you can see the content of our .gitignore. All of these files will not be pushed to my remote repo. So thank you so much for being a part of this. That will bring us to the end of this course on Git and GitHub. It has been an extensive learning journey. Okay. By the way, I want to show you. You can actually check out some of these videos on our channel. You can check them out here. If you want to learn more about some other topics, okay, visit the channel and you can check out some other content on the channel.